All right. All right. This is the real deal. My lives have not been going live. And so I'm trying to make sure something happens today, but I've got a backup plan. I'm trying to learn all this myself. And let me tell you, it gets kind of difficult sometimes, but we're here to talk this week in supervision. I want to get right to it today. I missed going live on Friday, was out on vacation, but I wanted to start today with a question and many of you all might have about, like, if you're holding group supervision. And again, we do this for group supervisors, we do this for clinicians. It's just a way to better understand how to present if you're a clinical supervisor, and it's a way to if you're trying to get better at practice, you can learn some things here as well. But I wanted to kind of get into the question that we had today, and the question that I had to come up not too long ago was about, where might I find exam, basically case-like questions. Like, a lot of times when you're presenting to your group, you want to be able to have exam questions and things like that to kind of get them built up and ready and feeling confident about the exam. And so I had someone to reach out to me. Actually, Melanie reached out to me not too long ago, and I'm going to put her question up here if I can figure out how to share here. And Melanie, she asked the question here. She said, "Hi there. I recently took your LICSW training, and that's the training that we have for supervisors, right? If you're a social work supervisor, do you have a recommendation of where I might find exam like case studies and info to present during LICSW supervision? I ordered the Dawn AppGuard book and it should arrive on Tuesday." So she's wanting to know, like, because you have different study materials that you can use. um and let me just cut the chase because we got a lot to cover. So I wanted, so you have different things, different test questions that you can use. And I feel like, if I'm going to use somebody else's material, I want to give them credit for it, but I've got a way where maybe you can use your own stuff, right? And so this is how I responded to her. I said, "Look, thank you, Melanie. Thank you so much for attending our training. This was a great question. For a long time, I was using I was using ATBS, I was using Pocket Prep, and I was using a number of these other test prep things to kind of get ideas for questions and bringing them to my group. Sometimes I would actually have the exact question and bring them to my group. But since ChatGPT has been released, I have found a way to create my own questions. So they're mine. They're mine. And I want to show you how to do that. And that's pretty much how I responded to her. And I gave her a link to ChatGPT. What we're going to do is go over a little bit today and help you to learn how you might be able to do this for your groups, how you might be able to use ChatGPT to create your own questions, your own test like questions, so that you don't really have to pass any credit or anything like that, or feel like, that you're doing something, taking somebody else's material, something like that. All right. And so let's get into it. So if you all had followed the last video I did, we had talked a little bit. We've been talking attachment, and what we discovered was there are some ways in which we can identify attachment in individuals. And the questions that we need to ask in summary was, first, if I have a client and I'm trying to understand, what things might work well for them, I'm really kind of wanting to be able to ask myself, what attachment style do they have? And so we went through last week some things about that. So if you have some secure attachment style, then you have a positive view of yourself, positive view of others. If you have anxious preoccupied, you have a negative view of yourself and a positive view of others, dismissive, and so forth, as you can see here. So how does ChatGPT, how can that help us in a scenario when we're trying to create our own questions? So I'm going to try to take a stab at it, because ChatGPT, one thing I want you to understand is that you really got to know your stuff. You want to know your stuff before you're using ChatGPT. You want to use ChatGPT as a supplement, because sometimes the material, when I actually did this live and it didn't record correctly, we got to see, well, nobody got to see it, an example of what happens where sometimes it doesn't give the right answers. And if you're going to just take this information that you get from ChatGPT and just dump it off on your clients as supervisees, that may not work because it's not always 100% accurate. So we're going to test it out here. So this is what the question that you might put. So let's just say that we have just learned attachment styles and we want to make questions geared towards that. Hey Siri, set timer to 10 minutes. I'm sorry, y'all. We're way over. That's just a reminder, though. We always go over. So here we go, and we have a question. Provide a multiple choice. So we want a multiple choice question to help us out with this material here, right? So what you do is provide a multiple. The question said, what we're going to put in ChatGPT is, let's just go on and copy it, right? And we're going to see, hopefully ChatGPT will work out right for us today. And we're going to put this in here. Oh, I love doing this. Okay, provide a multiple choice question for each attachment style listed below. That's all you have to put in there. I want a multiple, because I want to be able, if I just shared this with my supervisees, trying to get them game on this to make sure so that we can move forward into more deeper things relative to assessment. It's like, hey, they need to know this first. All right, so boom, we're doing that. And let's see what ChatGPT gives us today, right? Okay, I got to go through this fast. All right. So it gives us some multiple choice questions. All right. And so as you can see, it's given the questions, but most of the time you might want to say, provide the answer. So let's just do this and say provide answer because it doesn't help. And you could also say provide an answer and explanation. Right. Hope I'm not messing this up. I probably shouldn't have put that. So here we have the answer and explanation to this. Okay, so if we're looking for a question, if you're trying to see if they know this information here, do you know what secure is? Do you know what anxious preoccupied is? You could test them this way. And I'm gonna show you something else a little bit deeper as we go. But here's the question. Which of the following characteristics, do you know the answer to this? Which of the following characteristics are associated with secure attachment style? Secure. Okay. So we're going to skip on down here where it gives the answer. So it says, okay, you have a positive view of self and a positive view of others. That's correct. That's correct. Okay. So this is how we're creating our own questions to pose to our supervisees, because they may not know this. And this is something that you may be wanting to train them so that they can do better assessment, better treatment, things of that nature. Here's another one. Which of the following characteristics are associated with a dismissive avoidant attachment style? Do you know the answer to that? Dismissive avoidant attachment style. Question we're asking again, dismissive avoidant. How does a person view themselves? How do they view others? So do they have a positive view of themselves, or dismissive? I gotta think for myself as well. Do they have a positive view of themselves? Yes, it's like grandiose type. And I'm not gonna get back into what we talked about last time. How about others? No. They don't have a positive view. They really don't trust other people. So that will be the answer here. And so down here, it kind of gives you the answers to each one and an explanation, right? Okay, so let me go back up here. I probably already jacked this up. I shouldn't have did this, but so let's see if we want to get a little bit deeper. We got the questions and the answers, and we want to get a little bit deeper, right? This is the part I like right here. Okay, check this out. This is so cool. So we got to make sure ChatGPT is on the game. So provide, okay, we're just going to put it up here. This is simple. This is how you use ChatGPT. It's amazing. All right. So this is what we're putting in the chat for ChatGPT right now. And let's skip on down. So we're asking ChatGPT, we're saying, provide me with 5 cases, or provide 5 case studies and information to present during my LICSW supervision, social work supervision group. So I want 5 cases, and I want it really based on, and with ChatGPT, it'll generally just follow up with what you have already been presenting. Okay. And so here are the cases. Okay. We're going to take it a step further after this. That's why we got to hurry up. So it's just, and the cases are going to be based on what you just asked it, because it's ChatGPT is like you're having a conversation with someone. All right. Boom. So case study number 1. And we're wanting to be thinking, if we're testing and trying to help our supervisees to understand, now we're getting more to practical case examples. Like, do you know what's going on in this case? Do you know how to assess? And that's what we're looking at here. So the client's name is Sarah. It has some really good ones on the other one. I hope this one is good too. So what is Sarah? Background: Sarah is a 32-year-old woman who recently divorced her husband 10 years. She presents with symptoms of anxiety and low self-esteem. She describes her childhood as being unstable, with inconsistent caregiving and frequent moves due to her parents' substance abuse issues. So we're looking at this like, from what this is saying, she's a 32-year-old woman who was recently divorced her husband of 10 years, and she presents with symptoms of anxiety and low self-esteem. What's that telling us? All right, because see, I don't be knowing if I'm be able to figure this out live. All right, so what's that telling? She has low self-esteem. So what does she think about herself? Likely she doesn't have a positive view about herself. So that's answer number 1. Okay, so how does she view others? She describes her childhood as unstable, with inconsistent caregiving and frequent moves due to her parents' substance abuse issues. So she may not be trusting. I'm gonna bet that she is probably going to be avoidant. Okay, and we talked about avoidant. And so let's go back here, because we want ChatGPT to give us a thicker explanation. So we're going to put this in here to see if we can get more information. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm doing it live. Sometimes ChatGPT doesn't consistently give you the stuff the way it did the last time. So explain which attachment style aligns with each example. All right. So we started with Sarah, right? Sarah. All right. Okay, so let's see if this sizes up. Last time it didn't. I'm nervous. Okay, so explanation. Attachment style for Sarah is anxious, preoccupied. Okay, and let's see. So anxious, she's probably not going to trust others. Okay, so let's just go back to their explanation here. Anxious, preoccupied. I was thinking avoidant, but let's see. Sarah's symptoms of anxiety and low self-esteem, as well as her seeking validation from others, indicates an anxious, preoccupied attachment style. All right. So, okay. Her unstable childhood and inconsistent caregiving likely contribute to her negative view of self and reliance on others for reassurance. Again, we're doing this off the cuff. That's what the answer is for this one. Didn't have good, and this is the thing, you kind of got to be on it. You want to make sure when you present these two that you kind of know the answers, unlike what I'm doing here live with you all, kind of thinking off the cuff. But you want to make sure also that ChatGPT is giving you the correct answer. And it looks like that this sizes up with what's going on. So this would be an anxious, preoccupied, which means that the view of self is not so good. Okay. And then the view of others is kind of shaky too here. So let's go up to the chart here that kind of breaks this down. Anxious, negative view of self, positive view of others, and that's kind of how you do it. That's kind of how you do it, right? All right. So like I said, when you're going live, kind of screw things up sometimes. But let's check out one other one as well. Let's look at another example here and see if I can follow. All right. So attachment style. Let's look at example number 2. Let's look at example number 2. Okay. Mark is a 45-year-old man who struggles with alcohol addiction. He grew up in a neglectful and abusive household. okay, and witnessed domestic violence between his parents. Mark has a history of failed relationships and difficulties maintaining employment due to his substance abuse. So how do you think Mark is going to fare as far as attachment style? Okay, we got a couple of clues here. I better move. Okay. All right. So we're going to look at case study number 2. Let's see what we got here. So Mark identifies as fearful avoidant. And the explanation says Mark's history of neglect and abuse, along with his struggles with substance abuse and difficulties in relationships, suggests a fearful avoidant attachment style. Okay. His fear of intimacy and rejection, coupled with his negative view of both himself and others, are consistent with this attachment style. Okay, so we're faring at time here. Okay, so it's basically when you're having a fearful attachment style, we want to go up to our chart here. What does that look like, having a fearful attachment style? We got to remember fearful is on the spectrum where it's people have more difficulties just overall and may have more mental health concerns because there's issues with how they look at themselves and there's issues with how they view others. So here we go. Fearful avoidant, negative view of self, negative view of others. And so when you look at these case examples, it kind of gives you an idea of why. Again, the goal is to understand more about what happened to the person instead of what's wrong with them. And so when we understand the attachment styles that they have developed, we can better understand what with someone like this that's fearful avoidant. We know that individuals that are fearful avoidant have trouble trusting others. So many times they don't attach, they're avoidant in relationship. They're not going to just give you their everything. They're not going to put everything out on the table and be so vulnerable. And the reason is, as we can see in this case, if we can get to it, is because, things have not fared well in their experiences, to where they felt as though they could be trusting of others because of the relationships that they have had. Mark's history says he has had neglect and abuse. So if you're in a relationship where you have a neglect and abuse, are you going to be trusting of those who are your caregivers? Then moving fast forward, are you going to be trusting in other relationships? Okay. And so that's kind of how this works out. All right. So I got to wrap it up. I hope that this is helpful. You kind of just got to go through these, study and play around with this platform. Is very helpful. I think that if you use this in supervision, it can be a great asset. And shoot me a text or anything if you have any questions about any of these things that I discussed. Y'all take care and be blessed. All right. Bye-bye.